All right, welcome, welcome, welcome. It's not often that we get to hear a report on the ground just a few miles away from the Lebanese border, from the Syrian border where it all happens. Lieutenant Colonel in Reserves Eyal Dror. He is an extraordinary man that oversaw Israel's humanitarian operation during Syria's civil war, helping tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of Syrians during the brutal civil war in Syria. He does extraordinary work, and he has a new book out called Embracing the Enemy, where he speaks about his experience of helping people from a country that technically is not at peace with Israel, and yet he did so much to help them. So welcome, Eyal.
Welcome, good evening. What a great pleasure to be here with you. It's been some time since our last meeting here in Israel.
Yes, yes, you're the man who holds it all together. I don't know how you find time for all the different things that you do, but there's so much going on now. And I guess my first question is, how does what you did in the past tie into what's happening now? Nobody knows the Syrian ground situation better than you. Tell us, you did amazing things. I think it was back in 2014, during the Civil War.
Yes, the assistance to the Syrians started 2013. Operation Good Neighbor, which I was privileged to command, was started 2016. So it was like 3 years that Israel saved life of Syrians by evacuating them to Israel, and then we increased dramatically the humanitarian aid providing to the Syrians under the umbrella of Operation Good Neighbor, which I was privileged to establish and serve as its commander.
And so, how does that all connect to what's happening now? You have a new government in Syria. The US just removed sanctions. Will we see people traveling from Jerusalem and Tel Aviv to Damascus? Where do you see this all going?
I think I'm not going to eat hummus in Damascus in the short while, but we should remember only a year and a half ago, terrible war started in Israel. Hamas massacred brutally Israelis, and Israel was facing against a war against seven different fronts. Why I'm saying that? Because the total victory that Israel had against Hezbollah, the Lebanese, the Shia proxies of the Iran in Lebanon, which were, and this is a very few people know, Hezbollah is not just in Lebanon. Hezbollah has a very important presence in Syria during the years from 2016 and especially 2018 when the Syrian regime recaptured the area. In the last 6 years, they built their abilities in order to create another front against Israel. When Israel defeated Hezbollah in Lebanon, the people of Hezbollah in Syria had to go back home to Lebanon to assist them. This gave the opportunity to Jolani and his people. By the way, this is his testimonies to attack and to make this historical change. And this is historical change. In the Middle East, Syria has been changed. The government, the regime of Syria changed after 50 years. How it is connected to Israel? Well, in my period of time, we were helping the majority of the population, which were Sunnis under the control of the Alawite, which is a stream of the Shiite. Today, it has been changed. Today, the majority controls the Jolani, who were a Sunnite. Israel is focusing, helping the Druze community. The Druze, which has tight connections with the Druze population in Israel. It's important to realize that the Druze, back in those years when they were loyal to the Assad regime, Hezbollah had presence in their villages. However,
Mhm.
Israel, and this is what is similar, Israel said, we cannot see brutal murders happen. It doesn't matter if it's a brutal regime called Shiite massacre Sunnite or a brutal radical Islamic regime called Sunnite massacre Druze. Israel will provide and supply aid. So this is a little bit what is between those two times. Of course, the big the big difference at that time they were suffering from a terrible civil war, which today is not the situation. So there is some similars, but there is a lot of difference between the two times.
Mhm. And I obviously you can't reveal everything, but does the Israeli government or the IDF currently ever turn to you and say, "Look, Eyal, you know Syria very well, you know the people. Is there anything that you did back then that still, is in use now?"
So, first of all, what we have done then impact also today. The environment of Syrians. Yes, you see Syrians calling to destroy Israel. However, a lot of Syrians appreciate what Israel did. A lot of Syrians remember what Israel did for them. You especially sees that when you go out of Syria and you meet or speak with Syrians living outside Syria, they do appreciate what we have done for them. I do believe, and I always say that the situation today between Israel and Syria is, well, nobody knows exactly in which path it should go. People speaking about Abraham
Hmm.
Accords, the taking down of some of the sanctions by President Trump. Jolani itself said Israel is not our enemy. We're not willing, we don't want a war. Again, I'm suspicious. I will judge this person and his people according their actions, not according their polite words in English, by the way, because if you hear them in Arabic, you are here still the voices we are coming to liberate Quds, Jerusalem, Gaza, Palestine. So again, I'm a little bit suspicious. However, what I do claim, and I claimed it since 2018 when the operation came to its end, if one day we will have the ability to have talks, serious talks between Israel and Syria, Operation Good Neighbor will be a good point to start this discussion,
Hmm.
knowing that we save Syrians population, Sunnis, which are the same religious of their president and most of its government.
Hmm. Wow. So it did help build bridges for today. Let me take you to a bit of a more difficult, complicated situation, the humanitarian situation in Gaza. You did so much, the IDF did so much helping people, humanitarian aid. The logistics you guys did are unbelievable. What are we missing in terms of what's happening in Gaza, the humanitarian aid? I just saw today that the US government is going to make sure that more humanitarian aid comes in. What's your take on all of that? Is it possible to get an aid that won't go to Hamas? How do you're the master of logistics with this?
So I will say that it goes back to politics. Now, let's realize the meaning of humanitarian aid entering Gaza, and then I will try to describe the whole circle. Because humanitarian aid is one third, in my opinion, from the situation in Gaza or from the tools that Israel should act against Gaza. I will just mention that we should remember always October 7th, we never wanted, we didn't want this event. They did it. We know that civilians, thousands of civilians, not just Nukhba terrorists, thousands of civilians invade Israel, rape, murdered, burn Israelis, innocent Israelis. I do believe that it must be in our head all the time. Now, let's talk a little bit about the humanitarian aid. What I do claim from my expertise, and I have just 25 years of experience with humanitarian aid. We are trying, or the people, your audience, the people that living in this, trying to judge it with Western tools and going influenced by the Pallywood, the Palestinian propaganda. Let's realize and understand how humanitarian aid works. When an organization enters humanitarian aid all over the world, it should be delivered for free. Hamas is taking hundreds of dollars about everything that coming into Gaza. They sell, they, for example, getting a pack of cigarettes, they sell it with like the cost of like 25 to $30. It's
Why are
something that,
cigarettes why are
for
cigarettes
example,
humanitarian aid? Excuse my question, but
You see how I can show you some clips of Palestinians that used to smoke and they do not have small cigarettes. They will say, "Give me cigarettes instead of meat." However, Hamas is charging money. Now, let's think. And let's describe a scenario. We are in a closed house, in a locked house. Everybody has his bottle of water and some piece of bread. I have 10 gallons of water and 10 pieces of bread. After 2 hours, 3 hours, everybody, their food and water came to its end. Who will be the strongest guy in the room? I.
Yeah.
It's exactly what happened in Gaza. There was food. Now, humanitarian aid deliveries entered Gaza. By the way, a lot of entered. What Hamas did, they didn't allow the organization. I would just remind you UNERA, we know for sure by intel that they are collaborating with Hamas. Some of them are terrorists, so I don't trust this organization. But let's say other organization getting humanitarian aid. Hamas simply stole, robbed by weapon this humanitarian aid, sell it. When I sell it to you, first of all, you're giving me money. This money, I will pay the salaries of the people that working for me. I will be able to recruit teenagers and pay them some dollars.
Hmm.
In a place that you don't have money, you want to earn money.
Hmm.
Second, it's even more important. If I have the bread, if I have the flour, I will decide who will give it. Mr. Rabbi Elchanan, you are against me? You criticize me on TikTok? You are not going to get food today. So you must be with me. You must condemn, you must support me. This is why I do claim that the humanitarian aid entered Gaza. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Make this war longer.
Wow.
More soldiers lost their lives, more hostages lost their lives, more Palestinians lost their life. It makes the war longer now. Humanitarian aid just one third. What should have been made? First of all, a military pressure, stopping the humanitarian aid, or build a mechanism that allow you, and today there are talks about it, that allow you to control who is getting it. And the third part, which is very important, is to give like a strategic plan for Gaza. Without that,
Hmm.
even if you will not provide humanitarian aid and you will put military pressure, it will not work. Unfortunately, this is, in my opinion, the biggest mistake of the state of Israel. This is, by the way, if you ask me, why President Trump now start to condemn the issue of humanitarian aid. They want to put pressure on our prime minister because without any future thought about Gaza, without making, I don't know, a program that maybe Saudi Arabia, maybe the US, maybe the UAE, maybe Turkey, I don't know who. Everything should be on the table. Without that, the war will continues and continues and continues. And I do believe that the world, some of the people, some of the leaders in the world had enough. Some of the Gazan has enough. Some of the Israeli had enough. So this is why I do believe it is not connected to humanitarian aid. Again, humanitarian aid by itself, if it will enter, it means that Hamas will stay in control. And I do believe that nobody in the world believes that Hamas has the right to stay as the government, the governance of Gaza after October 7th.
Hmm. Very good point. Let me ask you just, I guess, trying to understand this, you succeeded in getting in humanitarian aid under the most impossible conditions. You had ISIS, al-Nusra, God knows who else there, in an enemy country. You were able to do that with the IDF. My question is there a way to do the same in Gaza, to get the same type of system going?
So I do believe that there is. However, like I told you before, uh, we need to have a vision.
Hmm.
We need to have a vision. If we will have a vision, if the state of Israel, the government of Israel will show a program to the world, we will get much more support. We will get much more colleagues that will be able to assist us. Now, how you can do it on the ground? You can, for example, the IDF is inside Gaza. You can make like an area, one
Hmm.
neighborhood, clear from terror facilities to allow civilians, only civilians, after security checking, to be living there, and then to open, for example, a secure channel in which the aid will be able to go inside. By the way, I will not say that the IDF should bring the humanitarian aid. You can coordinate with NGOs again, and the IDF, for example, will secure this road or something like that, and then the NGO will do the work of working with the Palestinians. But again, without a strategic plan, without a strategic vision for Gaza, authorized by the government of Israel, it will be very hard to do. At the end of the day, the IDF will find itself providing and delivering flour to the population of Gaza, which, in my opinion, is not something that I would want to see.
Wow. Let's talk for a second about the human side of things, because you were able to connect with many Syrians who previously, as the name of your book is, embracing the enemy. They saw you as the enemy. How do you see the difference between the attitudes of the people in Syria to Israel and the people in Gaza to Israel? When you approach the people of Syria, they in many cases stayed in touch with you, send you thank you letters, and kept in touch, etc. And yet with Gaza, it's a much more hostile situation. How do you explain the differences, and do you see any hope for there being the same human connection with people in Gaza?
Well, I do believe that as long and there is a huge difference regarding their regime. The Syrian regime didn't support Israel, didn't like Israel, and educated them to hate us. But it was not powerful like Hamas. Hamas is controlling on all ways of life for the Gazan people, like I told you, regarding the humanitarian aid, regarding permits to work before October 7th. Any one of them, any person in Gaza which will not play by the rules of Hamas will be punished in this way or another. So the hate is even bigger. Uh, what do I do believe can bring the change? Only the change of the leadership and changing of the education system. I will go back to Syria. In Syria, we had an opportunity to be on a daily based touch with the civilians without the government interfering, which is not the situation in Gaza.
Let me
Uh,
just understand that. If the IDF wants to be in touch with people in Gaza, it can't. If it wants directly on WhatsApp, on text message.
Again, it was much more complicated. Today, the IDF can be because we're down inside Gaza, so there is some probably connection that has been made. But what, for example, I will ask when people you asked me at the beginning about the Jolani, the new leader of
Mhm.
Syria, I will tell you, and I told you that I will sing his means by his actions, not by his words. For example, did he change the education book? Is in the Syrian official education system, you do not educate it to hate Israel. So this is a little bit. In Gaza, I will remind you that back like 40 years ago, there was good relationship between in Israel and Gaza. Unfortunately, in the last 20 years, under the basically in the last 30 years, under the PA regime, Palestinian Authority government, which they speaks much better than Hamas to the world. However, their education systems continue to share hate and hostility to Israel. So in the last 30 years, the Gaza's people has been brainwashed against Israel. In addition, of course, because Hamas terrorists were controlling the Gaza, we had a couple of military operations, which a lot of people of Gaza lost friends, life, etc. So the hostility much bigger. Will it be one day hope to something else? First of all, if the government of Hamas will disappear. Second, if the new government that will control Gaza will stop educating their people, their children, to hate Israel, and Israel is the enemy. If not, we will continue to fight each other for years ahead.
Which is not good for anyone. Many people, myself included, said that in Germany in the 1930s, 40s, throughout the Holocaust, not many, but a few thousand Jews survived in Berlin. and yet in Gaza, no Jew can survive. Uh, how do you explain that? Do you think the people of Gaza really just have such hate to the Jewish people, to the people of Israel? How do we see that, not one hostage comes back and says somebody helped me, someone was nice? What do you think?
Again, it's very clear when people are saying that there is people that are they aren't involved in Gaza. Yes, some of them they didn't invade Israel. A lot of them were in the streets clapping their hands and celebrating October 7th and the days after. And like I told you, 30 years of brainwash, brutal brainwash. It's more than the Hitler's time, which was in the government just a couple of years. It doesn't, and it's not like he had two generation that has been educated for hate. So in Gaza, the hate and the education for hate against Israel is a system. You have seen it with the UNERA, and I will just say something that Boaz Bismont just said 2 days ago. I think it was in an interview. He said, "You accuse me about apartheid when Israel left Gaza back at in 2005. There was this number. It was like I don't know, less than 2 million. Today there are 2.5 million. So how there is genocide
Hmm.
in Gaza? So again, the education for hate is so deep in their culture that unfortunately, without a radical change in that, by the way, the world tomorrow want to invest money in Gaza, in Judea and Samaria, give one term, change your education system. Let's see if they were willing, not just by making good for the pictures. Let's see all the books of the education system from the first grade until university. Then you will realize if they want a peace or not. In Israel, you will not find a book that calling to destroy the Palestinians or to kill Palestinians. This is how we educated people. And they are failing that time after time after time, generation after generation.
Wow. Yeah, the question is where does that go, and if will anyone be able to change it? Let's hope that yes. Back to Syria. Do you think it was a mistake for the United States to remove sanctions from Syria?
Well, it's a complicated decision. I do understand that the willingness to remove sanctions is in order that the Syrian government will get some money. However, and this is, and again, I'm not against the Jolani regime. I do claim that if he will be, for example, assassinated by Iran, by Russia, by his own people, uh, the future will be worse for Syria because today is popular. In the same breath, I will say that again. In my opinion, is still a jihadist, and worse than it, the people around him are for sure jihadists.
Wow.
Now, what I would expect from the US and the world sees this person and judge him by his actions. I can't understand why, when they butchered, massacred hundreds of Alawites, including children and babies, how the world didn't knock on the table and say you are not going to get $1. You continue to be most in the most wanted list. You are a war criminal. If you are a president, your people doing crimes against humanity, you are a war criminal. So I do not understand why the world closed its eyes after what they've done to the Alawite, to some Christians, and to the Druze.
Yeah, I mean, if you
Something that
compare that to Sabra and Shatila, how when Israel was not even involved, how the world was angry at Israel. And
You
there, I think
know,
the numbers were not even 10% of what happened under Jolani.
we're saying, unfortunately, no Jews, no news. I don't understand how the world can be so hypocrite. You want to give him a chance? Okay, first of all, make him to prove the world that he is a real president, and his people is not slaughtering people because they belong to other religions. Why the world was silent? So even if the US, for example, took off some of the sanctions, I do accept that when the next massacre will happen, and it will happen, what will be the reaction? If it will be just
Wow.
condemning, nothing will happen. He will continue. He must know from the first day, and we are now too late. By the way, the only country that said something and doing it is Israel. Israel said we will not going
Mhm,
to allow your Sunnis jihadist people to go down the border. Israel attacking his people when they are going down from Damascus. We will not allow them. So
mhm,
I'm asking what the world will do if Assad will massacre tomorrow 300 Alawites. What the world will do if they will see that they are doing something against the Kurds, what the world will do if they will realize that women do not have human rights, that the LGBTQ, for example, has been hunted, what the world will do. Continue to close its eyes and say, no, 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 he doesn't mean for that. He mean for everything that he is doing. So this double standard is making me, as a person living in the Middle East, making me very furious. And again, there is a chance, there is an opportunity, a huge opportunity for a radical change in the Middle East, including in Syria. However, the Western world must not destroy it again by its naive values.
Wow. You live right there. Not only are you in Israel, but you're close to the border. How do you feel about Turkey coming into the picture? Are you worried by Turkey moving into Syria?
Yes, I do believe again, this is exactly goes back to Syria. I do believe that if Turkey will enter, so you will, we replace the Shiite axis with Sunni radical axis. Take Turkey, Qatar, Syria. In Syria, there is presence of Hamas, Islamic Jihad. There is in Lebanon also presence of those organizations. The next country that they will try to be there is Jordan. So I'm really concerned from the meaning of the Shiite radical, the Sunni radical axis. What President Trump made, by the way, and this is why I can say that okay, removing the sanction is good idea maybe, again, we will judge it by the consequences of it. But if Syria will go to the path with Saudi Arabia and the UAE instead of Turkey and Qatar, which means that they are more moderated Islam than radical, which I will be a little bit surprised. However, if they will do so, from my point of view, it's less dangerous. Turkey in full power, it means Qatar in full power. These two countries, you don't want them on your border. It's a risk. It's a severe risk, and it's a severe challenge to national security of the state of Israel on the eastern border.
And do you think the fact that Turkey is a NATO member and unfortunately some people consider it a moderate force, a you know, secular country, does that give you any assurances that it's going to be okay, or you don't
No,
trust Erdogan?
it just makes me to be more concerned because again we speak about the naivety of the Western world. Yes, they're member of NATO. Yeah, they're secular. They're not secular. I remind you that Erdogan is not just a religious; he's a radical religious. Ask the Turkish people, not myself. Ask expert for Turkey. So they are not secular much anymore, and this makes me even more concerned because he get the support of the EU, because he get the support of the US, because
Hmm.
it didn't made until yet crimes against humanity. By the way, they did. They
Hmm.
massacre Kurds. It's crime against humanity. One day, maybe someone will wake up. Maybe this Karim Khan, after will get back his money and realize that to arrest
Hmm.
Bibi Netanyahu is not a good deal. Maybe we'll find some time to explore what Erdogan did to the Kurds just recently.
Wow. Really? Meaning he Erdogan attacked many Kurds and took their lives.
It's militias. It's not a secret. There is militias sponsored by the Turkish government. They brutally attacked the Kurds.
Wow. People are screaming at Israel genocide while Erdogan is doing that to the Kurds. Pretty
And
wild.
take the hypocrisy. Erdogan forces is now in Aleppo, and Erdogan is the first one that's speaking against the Israeli occupation of the Golan Heights, which is only we captured some military position on the demilitarized zone. Erdogan, which entered like, dozens of miles into Syria, invade this with his tanks, is calling about occupation while he's occupying Syria. Again, hypocrisy, and the Western world is smiling and clapping their hands
Hmm.
and saying, yes, Erdogan is a very good leader. This is the hypocrisy of this world.
Hmm. Wow. You mentioned Qatar. Qatar also much more than Turkey is able to double paint its picture. On the one hand, they're progressives. They're very you know top universities. It's all fancy, but on the other hand, they're extremists. How do you see what happened in the president's last visit to the Middle East, where he didn't visit Israel? He did go to Qatar, he did go to Saudi Arabia, he did go to the UAE. Uh, do you see Israel being left behind? Do you see Qatar taking more leadership than you feel comfortable with? Where is the new U.S. Middle East policy going?
So with the Qatarian, I will not feel comfortable at all. Although, for example, now they're trying to do some moderation, some negotiation between Israel and Hamas. However, they are the organization that sponsored Hamas. So uh, I do believe that Qatar is a challenge, a big challenge. I do believe that the visiting of Trump in the Middle East was connected to money and to business, and you know where the money goes. So we went and visited the UAE and Saudi Arabia and Qatar. This is the three richest country in the region in order to make some negotiations. Again, I'm not an expert for politics, but I do believe that what he has done without putting Israel inside is because he want to share a message with Bibi Netanyahu, with our prime minister, that
Hmm.
calling, hey man, I want to get the Nobel Prize. You are not going to be the person that's going to prevent me. So be with me or be against me. You will choose.
Hmm.
And I do believe that Bibi now has a problem, and he has a problem. The Israelis has some problem. Regarding Qatar, like I told you, I don't trust Qatar. They're playing on all the ground, on the field. However, again, you should remember where the thoughts about in the beginning and who are the people that they are supporting. It's Turkey, it's Hamas. Well, you can understand exactly what their ideology is. So again, I'm not feel comfortable with anyone talking to Qatar and give her to be in the front of the stage. Let's say it like that.
Wow. Let's try and finish on an inspiring note. You put out this book. You have many friendships with the people that you helped. What's the most inspiring story you can share? I want people to get the book, but what is the most inspiring story, a human connection, a kindness that remained that you had from that experience?
So I will just take advantage, Elchanan, and I will say that it took me 2 years to publish Embracing the Enemy. And you can see by the way the picture, the cover of the book, I think it symbolizes everything. A Syrian mom, a Syrian child, and an IDF soldier walking hand to hand. I do encourage, by the way, anyone to read it. It doesn't matter whether you're a Jew or not. If you have a heart and you're a human being, you should read it. If you want to learn about trust, about how to build a relationship, how to make a startup. Operation Good Never was a startup. We built it. It haven't been before. So I do ask people and encourage people to read it. Now, regarding the book and regarding the memories, I want you to close your eyes and picture and start try to imagine a boy speaking Arabic and an IDF officer with his uniform and gun running after him, shouting in Arabic. I can tell you that a lot of people will claim, of course, if there are some of the BDS supporters, they will say, oh, it's an IDF genocider, he is hunting a Palestinian boy. And now I will take you to the corridor of Hospital Ziv to a child named Ahmad who was waiting a couple of hours for the doctor. We brought him, his mom, and another 24 children and mothers to Ziv Hospital. All the children were suffering from chronic diseases. So they were waiting to meet the experts, doctors, and we had time. So we were talking and we were painting together, and then someone threw a ball to the corridor. So Ahmad took the ball and he was shouting to me, "Play with me." So we were like hunting, like running each other, and I tried to catch him and he tried to catch me, and we were shouting in Arabic and goal and everything else. And then
Wow.
I stopped for a second and I asked him, "Aren't you afraid for me?" And he was telling me, "Why should I? You're an Israeli officer, you're not a Syrian one."
Wow.
At that point, I realized that what we are doing is so important. We are risking our lives in order to make the Syrians realize who we are, to judge us by themselves, not by the messages that they are heard in their schools. I do believe that at that minute, I also realized that I'm doing the right thing to do as a human being. It's so important. Now, this Ahmed, I'm sure that he will not forget the state of Israel. There is thousands of examples like that of Syrians that, thanks to the state of Israel, they are living among us today in Syria and outside Syria. I do not think that they will forget, and I want to conclude with what I started. If one day it will be a possibility for real peace talk between Israel and Syria, not just statements, real talk. I do believe that Operation Good Neighbor will be on the table and Syrians will remember what we have done. It can make a very strong bridge to start these conversations.
Wow. Lieutenant Colonel Reserves Eyal Dror, embracing the enemy, extraordinary story of helping hundreds of thousands of Syrians during the civil war. Thank you for sharing your story, and I look forward to reading more about it in the book.
Thank you, and thank you, everyone. Please go and read that. Thank you so much.